Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because INdigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at INdigital.net.
My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from RapidSOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
You walked up and he was talking to you, and you guys hugged as well. Like, what is that? What is going through your mind at that time?
It's definitely something that's, out of the norm. It wasn't something that I was, prepared for. And I was like, going up, I'm like, yeah, it's just another guy that we just did for another thing. But then, hugging him, and the more that I thought about it and seeing him cry was starting to choke me up, because I'm like, something that we've done, Janie and I have done, has affected somebody else's life. And most of the time when you hang up that phone and officers arrive on scene, you don't really get to know the outcome.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with Within the Trenches, and this is going to be maybe another episode, bonus episode. I don't know. It all depends on how this all comes out, because this is kind of like a bonus-ode from an episode that we recorded about 3 weeks ago now, I believe. So I'm here back in Cass County 911, and I'm here with Nate. And about 3 weeks ago, we were all out here recording some footage, and I was recording some behind the scenes on a call that your partner Janie and you worked on, and a bunch of different folks in public safety who had this amazing save through the life-saving technology that you guys work with through RapidSOS. And it was just, everything fell into place with this call. And the fact that everyone got out there, but when they got out there, I mean, there's footage out there already, right? And we're just jumping right in here, but there's footage, there's body cam footage where the officer is out there, and also I believe either EMT or fire is out there as well, and they're pulling this gentleman out of the car, and there was literally seconds left, right? Yeah. Or else we wouldn't be talking about this call the way we're talking about it now. I mean, we might be, but it would be in a different sense. And in that video, you hear the officer yell out, "Watch his shoes," and you see the shoes catch on fire, and they pull the shoes off. And I'm getting goosebumps now just talking about it. But I remember watching it and thinking, this is crazy. Yeah. Like, there were just those seconds. Everybody got out there. They were able to save him. And, you know, there were awards that were given out and everything. And the family ended up seeing it and reached out and said, you know, we really wish we could have been there. And then this happens 3 weeks ago, where there's a reenactment of the crash. There is filming that is going on to show this save through this life-saving technology, but more so the humanity piece, the piece of just the amazing work that all of you guys do in this profession of 911. So we were out here, and I know I asked you this already, but I want to ask you again, especially now that you've had some time to kind of digest. Of course, someone will ask you, because I was the one that asked you, right? What was that like when the camera was right in your face? And it had just happened a couple hours prior to me asking you that. So when it's that fresh, you're like, I don't know, you know, I was just kind of there. But now you've had some time to kind of digest a little bit. Right. What was that like? And the reason I asked too is because just like Janie, you had one of those cameras right in your face. And I think I have video where it's so close.
No, it was touching.
Oh, it was touching?
It was touching. So I don't know what kind of, I don't remember what they called it, but it was like 18 inches long of this just lens. And he's like, I'm gonna get real close to you, don't move. And he's touching my eyebrow. And I just start I tense up and just start shaking. I'm like, what is happening right now? Why are we this close to my face in this moment? And in that moment, you're just thinking of did I tweeze my eyebrows this morning? Did I make sure that am I giving why are we this close to my face? Everybody's gonna be seeing and so you're just thinking of okay, I washed my face, but what if there's a pimple that's hiding somewhere? You're just worried about that kind of stuff because how is this footage going to be used? I mean, there was so many different shots that they did and different angles that they were doing, so it's going to be really cool to see when it comes out of how they ended up putting it all together.
Right. Yeah. That. And maybe I'll add it, and if I do add it, I will have already done it as we were talking about it. So we'll see. Maybe you already saw it because I posted it on there. But I do have video and a shot. I'll have to send it to you, where how close it is to you. And I remember standing there watching you, and I heard him say, "Don't move." And I thought, you know, if he turns to the right just a little bit, that thing's going to be in his eyeball.
I'm going to lose an eye. It was right above my eye. If I twitched a little bit.
And I saw a draft of it, and I can see how close it is. Yeah. And, but being on the other side of it, I thought, holy moly, yeah, dude, don't move, Nate. Yeah. He's going to take your eyeball out. But so you had that moment and everything. What was it like as well? Because there was a moment where you're standing off to the left of the center, and they're saying, you just happened to walk by. And one of the guys was like, you know what, we kind of like that. And they had you go back, and they're like, okay, on one, you start walking, and then they're like, action. So, kind of that too. What was that like? Was it just okay, or?
I mean, yeah. So I had walked across the room because they were going to be recording or something, and I had set my phone to the side, and then I was like, well, let me go grab my phone real quick while they're not recording, and I just walked through the frame. I knew they weren't recording, but obviously the camera's still on. Yeah. And they're like, we really like that. I was like, what? I just walked. And and also kind of, the setup of it was very much, I'm very rarely getting up and walking around the room that much. I do try to get up, but it does feel weird to put that into the recreation of everything, as it's a little unrealistic, but I understand that, that's what's going to make it look good in the end of it.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, there is, on that side of the room is where, we keep our warrants and everything. So I am walking back and forth, but I was like, well, this isn't reenacting. And that was the kind of thing, because they said reenactment. So I'm thinking we're just going to be doing this, and they're wanting all these different movements and me to be looking at Janie. I'm like, I rarely look at Janie during the shift. I mean, so with with those like type of situations like that, I've been working with her for 3 years. She's been my partner for that long, and I know the telltale signs of like what she's saying and what call that she's taking. So in that moment, she answered and said, you know, Cass County 911, and then stopped talking because what was happening in her ear was the iPhone crash detection thing. So she's now listening. So she stopped talking, and so like already that's a red flag. What's going on? Why did she just stop? And then she starts saying, hello, hello, can you hear me? And that's telling me even more that this is a crash detection. So she's trying to figure out, is this a real crash? Is she trying to hear, you know, cars passing by? What's going on before we start actually dropping it as a priority? Because as soon as she types in a personal injury accident into our CAD, it will automatically drop that down, whether you have notes in it or not. So just because it's a high priority call. So she was trying to figure out, is it a real one that's going to have to be toned out? Is it something that, because I just had one this last shift where it was a crash detection. I ended up saying, hello, hello, can you hear me? And the guy said, yeah, I was in a crash, but I'm totally fine. And I'm getting out of the vehicle right now, and I don't need an ambulance and all that. And they didn't turn into being a PI, so we didn't have to get everybody going lights and sirens. So, but I could tell right away that that's what was happening without even looking at her. So that was a big.
It's funny how you work with someone long enough and you get the vibes. Like you feel it. And this is, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I remember working with a group of ladies, and I had just started out, and they were telling me how everything is and how you get so connected with each other that you learn so many things. And another lady yells out at me, yeah, we've been together long enough that we're all in the same cycle now.
I've heard that before.
I started laughing, and one of them says, you're going to end up on our cycle too. I'm like, okay.
Okay. I don't know how that's going to work. But
yeah, exactly. But that's just an off-the-wall thing that they were telling me. And who knows, maybe they were. I don't know. But I just, in that sense, like you, excuse me, you end up working with someone so long that you can tell without looking at them, like you said, what is going on or how high of a priority it is, especially if you hear someone typing hard and fast, and you're like,
something's going on.
Yeah, something's about to happen.
Yeah.
Something's about to pop off. So, you have all of that that's going on. But I remember standing on the back, and I had on my phone just taking footage, and I'm going around like watching the both of you, how they're working with you and all of it. And I remember thinking, I wonder what's going through their minds right now. Like, how did we get here?
It is a little bit of, that shock, because just like, we're just doing our job. This is what we do. We're not, we don't do this kind of thing for those accolades, for, to meet the victims and things like that. So it was one thing when Jen, our boss, said, hey, the sheriff wants to give you guys letters of commendation for your work on that. And we're like, well, okay, that's fine. We go before the board of commissioners, and like there really, like, the news wasn't there or anything like that, but it's a big, like, I really don't want to do that because I'm not doing this for those accolades.
Right.
I
True.
want to just help people. That's why I got into this. And then we did that, and then right after we had done the award ceremony, we're taking pictures out in the hallway, like my mom had been there, and we're taking pictures with family and holding it up, and Jen's wanting photos, and she's like, all right, so I did something. And I'm like, what? What, you did something? What do you mean? She's like, it got way out of hand. And I'm like, what do you mean it got out of hand? And she's like, I was talking with RapidSOS. RapidSOS likes to know when something happens, and you're able to use their services to save someone.
Yeah.
So she, reached out to them and said, hey, just heads up, this is a call that we took, and was just giving them that information. And then it just snowballed into what we're doing now. And I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't even want a letter of accommodation, and now here we are with doing all this kind of stuff. But I mean, I can't be any happier with how this is all going to turn out, and showing the general public is going to see this. They're going to see that, you know, the technology that we have nowadays, that we can help people and save those people. Other agencies are going to see this, and maybe they might end up changing some of their policies so that they handle an iPhone crash detection as an actual crash and save hundreds of lives and educate the public. That's probably a big thing of 911 is the public doesn't really understand the way that it works. All they see is what's on TV.
Right.
And it's not realistic at all. We're not getting an exact location every time, but RapidSOS is bridging that gap through the use of GPS instead of just pinging off the towers. What everybody hears, you can't ping my location. Well, it doesn't quite work that way, but with RapidSOS, we're able to use GPS technology, but there's still an uncertainty radius, and if you're getting into, you know, a large city, or they're in a building, a skyrise building, you're not going to know exactly where those individuals are. You might be able to get a close address, but that's why we continue to ask, you know, what is your address? Verify that for me. I have probably something that's close, or maybe I have it exactly, but you know, you want to get that information. So I'm hoping though that, you know, educating the public a little bit might be a big help. So.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a good thing. And like you said, to see that technology is out there, but you know, a lot of what you guys do, which I get it. I remember being in dispatch and people were like, dude, great job. I'm like, oh, no, I was just doing my job, you know, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know, like patting myself on the back. I'm like, oh, you know, I did good. You know, I did good. And so I can understand that. I think also, we also got to normalize that. Being happy about what we do. Yeah, getting those. Because, we don't want that. We don't always want that. Every so often, though, the recognition feels good.
It is appreciated.
Yeah, it's appreciated. It feels good.
We work a thankless job because you know, you see those press releases go out, and everything that's in the press releases, the sheriff's office and this ambulance company and this fire company, and they all helped, and everybody survived this vehicle fire and yada yada. And it's like, okay, but they wouldn't be there if dispatch didn't do it. And so you kind of have those thoughts, and you get into that kind of sense of like, I was part of that team as well. Like, thanks to the dispatchers, these people arrived or something. And you kind of get used to that though, because it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get those accolades. So it is nice to be appreciated occasionally when it happens.
Yeah, man. Yeah, especially, you know, with this thing to show all the good that all of you guys did. And I mean, it started here. Yeah. And then the fact that both, you know, Janie and you got to meet Jeff, who was the person who was in that car. So, you know, one last question here too, and I'm pretty sure I asked you this before, but now that you've had time to digest and think about it, you know, I sent that video, the original video to Janie, where she's first, you know, embracing Jeff and all. But for yourself, when you walked up and he was talking to you, and you guys hugged as well, like, what is that? What is going through your mind at that time?
It's definitely something that's, you know, out of the norm. It wasn't something that I was, you know, prepared for. And I was like, going up, I'm like, yeah, it's just another guy that we just did for another thing. But then, you know, hugging him, and the more that I thought about it and seeing him cry was starting to choke me up, because I'm like, you know, something that we've done, Janie and I have done, has affected somebody else's life. And most of the time when you hang up that phone and officers arrive on scene, you don't really get to know the outcome of these calls.
Right.
And it makes it hard. I mean, I have, you know, a really good relationship with my officers. A lot of Janie's sister is one of our paramedics. So like, we have a good relationship with our EMTs and paramedics, and we can reach out to them and say, hey, what happened on that call? How did that end up turning out? But you don't always get those resolutions. So it's always hard to, I mean, with this call specifically, we heard, they said, you know, extrication complete. So the individual was pulled out of the car, but that's about, we didn't hear about all the injuries. And I mean, he had multiple broken parts and some different different cuts, and I think his wife said he only had to have like 2 surgeries for a few things. Nothing like real major for being pulled out of the driver's side window of his car while it was on fire.
Right.
So
yeah. Oh man, that yeah. Just seeing you guys go through all of that, whether it be the filming that was going on here, or the the luncheon and all of that. When the both of you were talking and hugging with Jeff and stuff, you can probably see, because I'm holding the camera like this, so you can probably see the camera like move up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting choked up, and it's one of those cries where you're trying to hold it back, so it's just like your shoulders moving.
right.
So you can probably see the camera move a little bit, and it's because I too am getting emotional.
Right.
But I think if you or Janie or anyone has ever wondered about their impact in this profession, that whole incident, that's where it is. That's where it's at. And the fact that it just ended up being the way it ended up being, I mean, it's just, I mean, you could almost say it's a miracle. I mean, it was like all the planets aligned, man.
They really did. I'm going to say something. I don't think RapidSOS even knows this. The ambulance crew was heading back from leaving a hospital. They were a minute down the road because of that. If they weren't where they were, they would have been probably about 5 to maybe even 10 minutes away, because they would have had to get in their ambulance. They would have been at their station. So they were right there when this call came out and was able to get on scene so quickly.
Jeez.
And if it wasn't for them already having taken that call, like, yeah, the planets aligned. And with this job, there's a lot of different ways to handle stress. I'm a very religious person, and that's a big thing for me, is that, like, I think God really had a hand in that to make all of this just line up and happen.
Divine intervention indeed.
Yeah.
I agree, man. One of the other reasons that have come back out is because in the last episode, like, there's a lot of stuff that we talked about, but also you guys had interviews that you had to do.
Yeah.
And there were people like we could see them. They were on the other side. They didn't do it, but they might as well have been like,
yeah, wrap it up.
You need to wrap it up, yeah. Because I saw them, they kept coming in, and I'm trying to reel it in and wrap things up. But one of the things that I wanted to do is to come back out, because when we were done, there were a couple stories that you had not had the chance to talk about while we were out there. So I wanted to come back, and I recorded with Anthony, but I wanted to capture your stories as well to be able to get them out there. So wherever you would like to start, of course, as long as you feel comfortable, hit us with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years at this point. I've taken numerous calls of, the serious variety where there wasn't a happy ending, like what we've been dealing with, or ones that there was a happy ending, and I've taken calls that were just funny calls and things like that. So, I've taken one of my very first CPRs was a 2-month-old baby that we worked on for quite a while before officers got there. It was on like a 3rd or 4th floor of a apartment building. And so they got there, the baby was already blue, and it was everything moved very quick after the officers got on scene. And I remember disconnecting and just having to take a break. And it's, with our agency, we have 2 people working. You can't really take a break, especially with a situation like this. My break was, I just stopped and breathed for a second and zoned out and tried to refocus, because like I knew from what was happening that this baby probably was not going to make it. The baby didn't, but they were thinking that there was about 45 minutes that baby was probably already deceased. So just because rigor mortis had already set in the eyes, which is the first thing to set. So that helped a little bit. So that was also one of my first debriefing calls that I did. So I ended up speaking, like sitting down with the firefighters that were on scene, the officers that were on scene, and we all just sat there and we talked, and just not so much of the, talk about your feelings, but just like what went well, what could have went better, those type of things. And that was when I found out that like the baby's eyes had already set, and there was probably not going to be a good chance of getting that child back. So that was a big one for me, and that debriefing really helped. And I would say anybody that works in 911, if there's going to be a debriefing session for a critical incident stress, go to it. Go be a part of that with the other first responders. You are still a first responder. You were the first one to be in contact with these people. Go to that, talk to them, let them know how you're feeling about it, and get that kind of resolution that we don't get. All I knew was the baby didn't make it. I knew nothing else. So now I'm left with these thoughts of, did I do enough? Mm-hmm. Was there more that I could have done? By going there and finding out that the baby had been deceased for 45 minutes, I knew there was probably nothing I could have done, because I gave the CPR instructions the way that I am supposed to through EMD. I knew I did everything I could do in that way. So, being fast or anything like that probably wouldn't have changed anything. So that was a big one for just handling those stress, is getting that debriefing session. Another one tied into just getting that resolution, or that kind of like a debriefing session. It was a real big surprise for me. I had taken a call for a 20-year-old. Originally what it came in as was the brother had gone out there, and his parents had texted him and said, hey, your brother's making some weird statements. Could you go over to his house, just check on him for us? So the brother walks in, and he hears what sounds like a gunshot from the upstairs other side of the house, which would be his brother's bedroom. So he closed the door, walked right back outside, and called 911 immediately. And I spoke with that brother, and I wanted him to go check and see, what was that noise? Is he okay? Things like that. And he said, I can't, man. If he actually did it, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. And so the officers get there, and the young man was still alive, but was missing part of his skull. And he stayed alive for about another 4 hours, just long enough for the family to come and see him. And I barely got that resolution. I only got that because the medical examiner called in and wanted the time of the call. And I was like, hey, what happened? First off, why's the medical examiner? I was told he was still alive. And then they filled me in on the full story of what had happened. And then a couple days later, so at my church, I run the sound system and the audio and video and everything like that. So one of the members of the church came and said, hey, we got a funeral coming up. Would you be available to work sound? And I said, absolutely, not a problem. I do it all the time for all kinds of funerals and weddings and all kinds of stuff. So I came in, I spoke with the other member of the church who had asked me to do this. So I came in the day of the funeral. I said, hey, what do we got? What's going on? And she's like, yeah, it's a 20-year-old who killed himself. And I was like, no, it can't be the same guy. I said, what's his name? And she told me, and it was that same person. And I was like, I told her, I said, I took that 911 call. And so now I had that kind of decision of like, am I actually going to be able to be here and handle this? Like, this is not something that I want to be a part of. But I was like, I got a job to do with the sound, and I'm going to see this through. Mm-hmm. So I ended up staying, and it was actually really good. The family, I got to see the family and the friends go and talk about this young man's life and how great he was and things like that. And it was the typical situation of he was always so happy and nobody ever saw this kind of thing coming. So it was a very big kind of shake up for me. And I also had that decision, like, do I go talk to the family and like introduce myself? And I have made the decision not to. If it was a happier ending, maybe, but making them relive that day by saying I was the 911 caller may not have been the best option. So I didn't do that. But it was definitely a whole new way of handling and processing trauma. I mean, I felt better after the case, knowing that he did have a support system and he didn't reach out, because you're always wondering those kinds of those suicidals of like what was going on in their lives, and they don't really know what the issue was because he seemed so happy all the time. But it's something that's gonna stick with me. And with as traumatic as this job is and things like that, develop those support systems and those people around you, and don't be afraid to reach out to them and say like, hey, I'm struggling with some stuff. Because this job takes a toll on people, and suicide is a very high thing in the first responder world, from dispatchers, police, fire, and EMS. So it's definitely something that's going to stick with me, and make sure it'll help me make sure that like I'm continuously reaching out to people and making sure that not only they're okay, but that, hey, maybe I'm not doing so good. So that was a very special call to me.
Yeah. For those who are watching and listening, whether you believe in God or not, higher power, any type of belief that you might have, I think this is another situation.
Oh, for sure.
Where you were meant to be there.
Yeah.
You were put in that spot. Maybe, I don't know this because I'm not you, right? But maybe in the back of your mind, the bottom of your heart, maybe you were struggling a little bit, and you might not have realized it or knew it at the time that it was bothering you. Maybe you felt like there was something wrong, but you didn't, pinpoint it to this specific call. But then you end up being there at the funeral and doing the sound for this. And as you said, you weren't sure that you could do it, but you pushed through because you had a job to do with the sound.
Right.
And I'm sure that also goes with like your beliefs as well, will see me through, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, it turned out to be good for you in the sense because you got to listen to all of that. That was, I would say, just in my perspective, from the outside looking in, that was another form of closure for you. To be able to go through all of that, not just to know from the medical examiner or anything, that part of it, but to be there for this celebration of life and to hear the rest of this. I feel like I would feel the same way. Like, oh man, I needed that.
Yeah.
You might not have known, right, that you needed it, but maybe you felt it. Like, damn, maybe I did need that.
Right.
To be there and hear all of these things. If that moment in time does not capture what that person's life was, and you've got that connection. You've got to hear all of that and to see what more there was to that person's life than just that one moment.
Right. Yeah, that was a really big kind of closure, essentially, of just a call that could have been really bad. I mean, I hadn't thought of that call since taking it.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing with this job is, you hang up, and I think with that, it was a 2-month-old baby. I think the very next call that I took was just like a regular business alarm. Like, the world doesn't stop just because somebody has passed away. And so, you don't have time to process these calls in the moment. And sometimes you just never go back to it. And then a year down the road, all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm really depressed. What's going on? And it's like,
Right.
Oh, I don't process my calls because I'm a dispatcher. I'm strong. I leave all of my issues at the door when I walk out the door. And like, sometimes it's good to process those calls and get those taken care of. So
Yeah, for sure. Because then otherwise, like if you don't start now and you said 4 years in?
4 years.
4 years in, you're still early on in your career and everything. If you don't start processing and figuring stuff out for you now, that's when you start struggling later. Or if you leave it unchecked per se, and then you retire out, then it all comes back.
Right.
And it sucks. And of course, for those who are watching and listening, it's when you are ready. When you're ready.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this as you got to do it now. No, because everybody processes different. Everyone goes through this in a different way. All I try to tell people is try to work on some of it now. Give yourself some grace. Reflect on these calls, because there's a lot of times where we fall into those rabbit holes on certain calls where we start questioning, well, what if I would have done this? Well, what if I would have done that?
For sure.
And then, right? And then you start blaming yourself, and you have to remember, like, this wasn't your emergency. You're there to help people.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times you need to have someone tell you after a call, you know what, there was nothing else that you could do.
Right.
You did everything you could have. And not everyone gets that. And that sucks. Everyone, I hope, sometime throughout their career will get that gift of closure, whatever that form of closure is. And with this one, you might be a trainer later on. You might be a trainer now. I don't know.
I'm a trainer now.
Okay, I was going to say, you might be a trainer now. I don't remember because the conversation was 3 weeks ago. But, this experience as well can be something that you might have a trainee who takes a call while you're training them, and it's something similar. Or it might be someone that you worked with or that you trained, and later on they've dealt with this and they remembered that you had a similar type of call. And, our calls, our stories end up becoming someone else's inspiration or motivation to, whether it be get help, do better, or just realize that they're not alone.
Yeah, that's probably the main reason that I got into dispatching was, I've got a lot of trauma in my life. I lost my sister at a younger age. I've been married, divorced, and just experienced a lot of loss of just loved ones and things like that, and just things that I've grown from and learned from. And when I was about 20 or so years old, God put a calling on my life that I was going to help people. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I wasn't even close to being a dispatcher at the time. It was another about 3 to 4 years before I did that. And I was like, what? I'm going to help people. Like, people are going to come to me and ask for advice. Am I, doing Bible studies? What is it that, you mean? And God's timing doesn't always make sense to us, but he told me that's what's going to happen. And that's the reason why I've gone through what I've gone through. And then when I started looking and doing this job, I started thinking about, okay, can I handle this? Mm-hmm. I know the stress and the trauma and everything that's going to come from this. Am I going to be able to handle it? And the first thing I thought of was, I've gone through so much already. There's probably nothing else out there that's going to be worse than what I've gone through with losing my sister. It was a car accident that I was driving. She was hit. We were hit on the passenger side, and she folded over the center console, and her head was laying in my lap. You're not going to show me anything, or I'm not going to hear anything that is worse than what all that happened in that moment. So, and then when my second thought when I was joining this job was, this is where God's saying that I need to be. And it has happened over and over that I've talked with people, suicidals and things like that, where a big part of our job is empathizing, but in those situations, I can sympathize with these people. Mm-hmm. They're going through a divorce, they're feeling alone. Guess what? I've done that exact same thing. And you got to remember that you can't give somebody else on this earth power over your feelings and how you process things. And then here's how, we've got all these resources. We're going to have officers come talk to you and get you connected with peer counseling and just whatever it takes to get you into a better mental state. And I can actually sympathize with these people. And that's been a big thing throughout everything of, like, I've gone through this stuff and now I can rely on my past experiences. And now as a trainer, I can pass that on to the next generation of dispatchers and say, hey, I've gone through this and this and this and this. Here's how this stuff gets handled. And then hopefully when they end up in those types of situations, they can remember that, hey, Nate's gone through something like this. Maybe I can go talk with him. He might be able to help me because I'm having some dark thoughts. And that's all I want, is just to continuously help people through whatever they're going through. So
I love that, man. That's that call for service.
Yeah.
Not just in dispatch, but in our lives as
Right.
well. That we have, and right off the bat, condolences. My condolences for your sister and stuff. And I feel like just everything that you're saying, there are things that you've gone through, and maybe, I mean, you kind of said this already, but what happened in that accident kind of being a way of pushing you towards service as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that too is because I've had a recent guest who was on was telling me about her dad was really sick, almost all the time while she was growing up. So she was always calling 911, and that was when she took the time to kind of reflect on everything. She felt that was kind of what pushed her towards public safety as well, because all of those folks helped her and her dad, and now she was going to get the chance to help others in the same way. And I think a lot of us, and we might not think about it, we might not be able to pinpoint it to one specific moment or incident or whichever, but there's something that we experience that pushes us into this profession.
For sure. That's no, I'll just say it with the the dark humor and the way that we process things. One of the first questions that I like to ask new officers that are coming in or new trainees is what's your trauma? First off, with trainees, that is an important question, because you need to know if they have issues with oh yeah, my mom committed suicide last year and she hung herself. Okay, when you take a hanging call, that's probably going to hit you a little bit harder.
Yeah,
I need to know that as your trainer.
Yeah.
That way we can process that. But it's always something where it's what's your trauma that drove you into doing this? And everyone has a story of why they chose to get into this profession. Mm-hmm. And it's never just, well, I just decided one day I was just going to do it. No, you've got family that was already in this. You've seen this kind of stuff. You may not have primary trauma, but you've seen the trauma from other family members. And so you are choosing consciously to continue that. And it's a big step. There are people out there, I used, absolute. There are people out there that genuinely are just I want to help people, and I'm just going to get into this and just to help people, and they don't have any trauma and things like that. That's fine. We've got more than enough trauma to go around. You'll get some.
We got a buffet for
it. You'll pick some up down the road, I promise. Right. You'll take those calls that are going to stay with you.
yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's good to. There are a lot of folks that and I've spoken to a lot of them on this podcast, where they just kind of fell into it, but through talking, that sometimes I'll say, do you think that was kind of the reason why you were I never thought about that. That actually is a connection. Now I'm going to think about that. I'm well, everyone has something.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said, there are some people that want to get into it. There was an interest.
Thought it was interesting. Yeah. There are people like that.
But a lot of the times there's something in the past, and it might not come up right away. And when it does, you'll realize that full circle moment.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely
we've got all of these moments, these things that we're talking about, but there are also times where we connect with all of those out in the field. And I've told people this a lot of times, that when you hear that someone is in an accident or that someone has gotten hurt on an incident, you start listening to voices. And the reason that we're listening to voices is to narrow down who it is that got hurt, or who it is that in question that is going on. And then we figure it out. And a lot of times you're like, oh my God, what just happened? And so we've got these different relationships with those out in the road. And, you know, I think you had something that correlates with that or that connects with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just in this, we're a very small county. Our fully staffed road for the sheriff's office is like 20 deputies. So we're friends with all of our deputies. My best friend is one of my deputies. He's my dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons,
Nice.
which is one of my coping mechanisms with, you know, the trauma, is having that escape of being able to like go and pretend, you know, you're the hero, and there's consequences for your actions, but it's not real life consequences.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's
you're
nice
like,
to
you're
kind
a
of
battle
have
dwarf
that
stuck
escape.
in a tavern. And
Yeah. So he's you know, one of my best friends, and you build these relationships with these officers, and then you send them into unknown situations. I mean, it helps you be a better dispatcher because you're like, well, these are my friends. I want to make sure that they're going to be safe.
yeah.
And so you take it very seriously that, you know, I'm going to make sure to ask about weapons for this domestic and drugs and alcohol, and is this person hopped up on meth and they're, you know, not going to respond to being tased because they'll just keep running. And so you start, you know, going through that stuff, and it is, you know, it's a very scary thing. And then the other thing is, like, if they get into accidents and things like that. So Tom was actually in an accident a couple months ago, actually about a year ago now, but he had went into a tree, and he had a trainee with him. And I'll tell the story. It's kind of a funny story. So the airbag goes off. His hand goes through his computer in the patrol car, and he ends up like stumbling out, getting out of the driver's side, stumbling out, and he's like, all he can think about is like, I gotta save, you know, my trainee, I gotta save him. And so he goes around to the passenger side, and he puts one hand on the car and grabs the handle and rips the handle off of this Ford Explorer. And he's like, ah, and like throws the handle down. Meanwhile, while this is happening, his trainee is rolling over everything in the patrol car and trying to get out the driver's side. And he gets out to the driver's side as Tom is walking around, and he collapses on the ground. Tom does not see him and steps on his chest and goes, you know, trainee, are you in there? And his trainee's like, I'm down here. So he steps back, gets them up. They're both totally fine. They had no like real injuries at all. A little bit, you know, tightness from being jarred around a little bit, but they were totally fine. But a very, very funny story. But when that moment happened, all we heard was, Central, we were in a crash, and Janie and I just looked at each other, and our hearts are in our throats, and, you know, we're tensed up, like what's going on, and we're like, you know, are you injured? Are you injured? We're trying to get information. Where are you located at? Things like that, because at the time we just got GPS locators on all the cars. Mm-hmm. Part of that crash was that reason, but Janie and I had Tom's location on our phones. We had shared it all with each other, so we were able to like pinpoint exactly where he was located at. But, you know, there's that moment of like, my friend is in trouble and I don't know what to do. And because you have that connection with these, you know, your officers and your EMTs and things like that, it's a very different situation. So,
yeah, it makes everything that much deeper and more personal.
Yeah.
With everything going on. I mean, even with some of those that are out in the field that you don't know, right? You still have that connection, but when they're like, you know, really good friends with you, that hits harder because you're just sitting there, right? You can't go out there, but it just hits that much harder. You know, you kind of mentioned this with the D&D. So how important do you feel that it is for those in our profession of 911 to have those types of escapes, per se, those types of coping mechanisms? You know, healthy, of course. I mean, that right there is healthy enough. You know, you guys are escaping into this world where it's whatever you make it up, but you're just sitting there talking, chatting, laughing, getting into these different situations, right? How important do you think that is for people to have that on the outside of 911?
Yeah, I believe it's probably one of the most important things. Our career is just, we have so many things that we end up trying to cope with, and we use, nicotine and alcohol, and hopefully nobody's using any harder drugs than just those things, but and caffeine. I mean, caffeine's the main thing. I've got an energy drink right here already.
Right.
So, but like, we have these things that we use as unhealthy coping mechanisms because it gives us those temporary relief of, smoking gets you to de-stress, and whether it's you stick a nicotine pouch in or hit a vape or light a cigarette, it has that temporary help, but it's not something that's going to help you at the end of the day.
Right.
So having those healthy things, like, even if you're not into Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, video games are a very good escape, and that's what I did when I first started, was just sit down and just play something like Minecraft or something where you shut your brain off, you don't dwell on what's been going on, and just take care of it. But a lot of people, they'll read. Music is a really big escape for me as well, and helps you kind of get those emotions out too. Sometimes it's okay to have that good cry and just let it out. Put on a song that's going to tug on those heartstrings and will help you drag that out and try and take care of those emotions that are building up inside of you. So
for sure.
Yeah, having those good, healthy escapes, and being able to, some of my coworkers, they do they have like a book club, and they go and to a winery, and they sit around and drink wine and talk about the books that they have been reading and things like that. Like, that's their escape, and it's great for them. It works for them. I would never be interested in that, but but it's, everybody has their different ones, but just being able to socialize with people, even if it's not people that are in this career field, just having those people to reach out and go to. And church is a big thing for me. I have friends and people in the church that I can just go and just talk to, and they don't know much about my job, and that's fine. That means that I don't have to talk about my job. If I'm sure every first responder out there knows that when you start getting first responders together, they're solving all the world's problems. We're talking about all the problems, all the problems in the world, in the department, in the county, in the country, and whatever. We're talking about everything that we want to talk about, and you're still kind of talking about work. And so it's always nice to have people to go and just, you don't have to talk about work for a little bit and disconnect from that. So
I dig that.
Healthy coping mechanisms for sure.
Yeah, those are always good. And so I love that. Gaming was one of my things as well. Before I got into more of like yoga, meditation, and breathing techniques and all that other stuff. But yeah, the gaming piece was always a good thing. I had a group of dispatchers that I worked with where around that time, I think it was Call of Duty Modern Warfare, either 2 or 3 that came out. So we would be gaming.
Dating yourself there.
I know, dude, for real, yes. Yeah, when those games were good, when they first came out, and and they were really good and stuff. Yeah, it was like 2012, 2013. Yeah. We would be jumping on there and we'd be playing all night because we worked midnights. Yeah. So we would try to keep our schedule. And it was, before we knew it, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm like, I think I'm going to go to sleep now.
Yeah, it's
probably time to go to sleep. I've won enough trophies and also lost enough at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, good coping mechanisms and everything that way as well. Did you have any other talking points that you wanted to touch on or anything as we go into the wrap up of this? Because I've got one last question for you.
Okay. All right. Well, I kind of going just back with how everything has happened with RapidSOS. I want to kind of sing their praises a little bit more. We had a call. Actually, it was a text. So nowadays, anybody that doesn't know, there's applications out there that allows for texting to 911, and so RapidSOS integrates with that very, very well. So we get a notification that a text is coming in, and then the text comes in through, we use Texty. And So I open it, and it's supposedly somebody claiming that their ex-boyfriend showed up, and it's a domestic situation. And she's scared, and she is trying to hide, and she can't text all the time and all that. But the Rapid location didn't match up with the location that they gave, and I was like, well, that's weird. Maybe Rapid's just bugging out, and technology. It's pros and cons of technology.
It happens, right? Yeah.
I'm like, very weird. So we send everybody up there to figure out what's going on, and we finally locate the female, and she's like, I didn't text you guys. And we're like, what? Like, yeah, this number is what texted us and saying that there was a domestic. And she's like, no, I've not even seen my ex-boyfriend in like 3 weeks. And then we're like, okay. So then we tell her the phone number, and she's like, oh, that's my ex-boyfriend from 2 boyfriends ago. That's his phone number. And so now I'm like, oh, okay, Rapid was right. I said, so I went, hey, officers, here's the address that phone is going to. And so they go out there, and immediately the guy's face turns white, and he's like, he knows what he's done is wrong, and he confesses immediately, and we end up charging him and for abuse in 911, and I don't think he got charges for false police report, but it was abuse of emergency services, I think, is the charge for that. And because of the use of Rapid, we were able to pinpoint his location and, teach someone that don't abuse 911, don't use emergency services, because now we've got all of our officers heading up there, and now who's protecting the rest of the county if another emergency comes out?
Right.
Like, that's not a good thing to do. So RapidSOS has been a great tool that we've been using since well before I started, and I couldn't be any happier with the way that they do their things. So
dang,
very happy with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't abuse 911.
Yeah. It should be common sense, but I mean,
I know, people do it. People
Yeah.
do it because they think they're not going to be found or whatever, and then it happens. And
that's the thing. I mean, don't challenge a dispatcher.
I know. Right?
If you want to lie and pretend that you're somebody else and things like that, we're taking that as a challenge. We're gonna find you. Janie has found somebody based on a fake name, a phone number, and she found them based on court records.
No
She
way.
looked for public court records and was able to locate the name and the. I don't think she got the date of birth, but she was able to at least get the name. And then we were able to, through other means, find everything else, run the person, and then the officer confirmed that it was that individual. Like, don't challenge us. We will find your information.
Straight up
It's out
detectives,
there.
yo. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's those moments where, and it happens with little kids too. Little kids playing with the phone, and there was a kid who I think was like maybe 10 or 11 who was messing with the phone. He had stayed home from school, but it was one of those cell phones where it can only call 911, and so it's got like this random number. And what we were doing in our in-house database was every time that would happen, we were logging it. And if we were able to get more information from, one of the cell phone providers or something, we would log that as well.
Right.
And this one was one that it happened to work out where we had a name and an address, and we said, you know what, just try it, just in case, because this little kid has called several times now, and he's saying some stuff that could be true or could not be true. And this was like some off the wall, like, I'm going to kill you guys type thing, or I'm going to kill, the people that are here in the house. And we're like, and the kid's laughing, but you got to take it seriously, because anything could
never
happen,
know,
right?
yeah.
So we send the officer out to this address that we got, and he keys up on the radio and he goes, Central, I'll be out, show me out at such and such address. I'm pretty sure this is the one. There was a kid looking outside the window and just ran. And we're looking at each other, we're like, oh, maybe this was right. So phone call comes up, and I pick it up. I look at the screen. I was like, oh, it's the number. And I pick up the phone and I say my thing, and it's the officer. And he goes, "Was this the phone number that popped up?" And I said, "You got it." And you can hear Mom in the background yelling at the kid saying, "I told you not to play with the phone." And the officer has the kid come up onto the phone and apologize to me, and then had him apologize to my partner and stuff. And I said, "Dude, I'm just glad that you're okay. Please don't play on the phone, but I'm glad that you're okay." And the kid's like, "Okay," and "I'm sorry," and says the same thing to my partner. And then the officer goes, "Central, you can show me 10-5 out here," which is like, you don't have to give me any other checks or anything like that. I'll be fine. And we were sitting there. We're like, "Don't test us."
Yeah, you're riding that high.
Yeah, like we found them, but ultimately, again, we're just glad that kid was okay.
Well, yeah, for sure.
But
I've
man,
had 2 times now. My officer has made somebody apologize. One was a grown man. He called in, cursing at us, wanting an officer, and just berating us for no reason. We're just here to help you. Like, why are you yelling at me and cursing at me? I'm just trying to gather this information. And so we let the officer know, like, "Hey, just heads up, he's very agitated and he's cursing at us and things like that." And he gets out there and the officer berates him for it after he had handled the call. I mean, in a very professional manner, but he told him, like, "How would you like it if somebody did that?" and all that kind of stuff. So he had the officer called on his personal phone and said, "Hey, I've got the caller. He has something to say to you." And I was like, "Okay." And so he puts the caller on phone, and the caller apologizes. This is so awkward. I'm like, "This is the weirdest thing I've ever had happen."
Like,
And I'm like, what's going on? But he was like, it's nice to have, going back to that relationship with officers, where it's like they want to take care of us. They know how hard that we work to make their lives easier, and they take care of us by doing those sort of things.
Right.
I had another officer, the same situation. It was like an 11-year-old kid that just kept calling and doing just not to that extent where like making threats or anything, but so we sent him up there, and the officer made him write an apology note to us, and like spoke with the mom and was like, and the mom was like, "You're gonna have to go to jail, man." Like telling her little kid that, like, "You're gonna have to go to jail."
The mom was telling the kid that.
Like, "The police are here. You did wrong." And then the kid's crying and is like, "What can I do?" And the officer's like, "Well, you can write an apology note, and I won't take you to jail." And so,
just playing off a mom.
yeah. And so the mom was like, "Oh, totally fine, absolutely." So she brought out pen and paper, and they sat there on the stoop and wrote down an apology note.
Wow.
And he brought it up to us. And I mean, teach your kids not to like play with phones and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's those. So I always tell people, there's a lot of chaos and crazy that happens in 911, but there's also lighthearted lessons and funny moments that happen in
Sure.
And that's just part of it. So as we go into the wrap up of this, which has been awesome to have you on again to talk about it, and share these stories, and I thank you again. But sticking to that lightheartedness, I asked a bunch of funny questions and kind of a bonus-ode type thing with Anthony. One of the questions, let me see if I can find it here really quick, because I want to ask you this as well.
Okay.
But let's see. Oh, it's over here somewhere. Oh, okay. So if dispatchers had a theme song every time they put on the headset, what would yours be?
Oh no. Oh, that's a difficult one. I can't think of a song off the top of my head.
So Anthony's was Back in Black.
Okay.
But we had said, though, as soon as the headset comes on, it has to jump right into the Back in Black. And then he goes, but that tick tick in the beginning could be as you're walking through the building.
Building up.
Building up, and then you put it on and it jumps in. And I said, oh yeah, that would work as well. So for mine, I had 2 of them. The first one that I mentioned was from Korn, Blind. Because right in the beginning, he yells out, "Are you ready?" And then he goes, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then it just jumps in. So I thought that could be one.
That'd be a good one.
And then also Down with the Sickness by Disturbed.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you put on the headset, you would hear, ooh, wah, ah, ah. And it would just jump right in. So if you had to choose a theme song for you when you put your headset on, what would it be?
I don't know. I really don't know off the top of my head. I would say just switching the question around and saying like as you're leaving, Hero by Foo Fighters.
Oh,
there goes my hero.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Hell
I definitely
yes.
for sure. But man, putting on a headset though, I don't know. The first one that comes to my mind is Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, which is a little dark, but
yes, it's a good song. But yes, it is
a
little
pump up song.
Yes,
Like you're like,
but
all right, let's get
on the
this done.
dark humor side.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny. There's a dark humor piece to it,
Yeah.
and it gets you pumped up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
No, I dig that.
I think that would probably be that's the first one that comes to my mind. But I can't think of a better one.
I love the theme song "Leaving" though.
Yeah.
Yeah. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. I mean, that's perfect,
For
man.
sure.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, thank you again for being on, for what you
Thanks
do.
for having me.
This was a lot of fun. And for all of those that are watching and listening, you can find everything by going simply to links.co/IM911. You can see this on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as X. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. And a shout out to our sponsors, INdigital and RapidSOS. See you all in the next one.
Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.